Hey, welcome back. There's something small that drains people more than they realize, and it doesn't look dramatic at all. What's harder? Hearing a clear no, or spending 10 days inside a conversation that never quite lands anywhere? One message comes in at 11:48 p.m., then nothing the next day. Then a reply like nothing happened. Plans that almost happen. Answers that almost mean something. Moments that feel close but never actually arrive. And here's the part most people miss. It's not the person that keeps you stuck. It's the unfinished signal your mind keeps trying to solve. Because the human mind doesn't rest inside uncertainty. It circles it. And once you see that, you'll stop asking why them and start asking something far more dangerous. The part that keeps wearing you down is not always the person. Sometimes, it's what never actually ended. You can hear a clear no on a Tuesday afternoon at 2:17 p.m., close your phone, and feel the sting, but it fades. But 3 days of half replies on iMessage, that sits differently. Because one is finished, the other stays open. And an open thing doesn't stay quiet. It keeps pulling your attention back again and again and again. You check at 11:52 p.m. Nothing. Then a message shows up the next morning like nothing was missed. A coworker who jokes with you all week in the office Slack, but never answers when you suggest grabbing coffee on Friday. An ex who watches your Instagram stories at 1:03 a.m. but hasn't said your name out loud in 2 weeks. That kind of space doesn't give you an answer, so your mind tries to make one. Not once, not twice, over and over. Because the mind does not like unfinished things. It doesn't like not knowing where it stands. It doesn't like not having a clear ending. So it keeps going back, trying to solve something that was never fully said. That's why a direct rejection can feel sharp but short, and a vague connection can feel soft but endless.
One closes the door, the other leaves it slightly open. And that slight opening is enough. Enough to make you reread old messages. Enough to make you replay a tone in their voice from a call last Thursday night at 9:40. Enough to make you wonder what changed between week 1 and week 2. And slowly, the focus shifts. You think you're thinking about them, but you're not. You're thinking about a question. What am I to them? That question doesn't leave easily, because it was never answered clearly. So your mind fills the gap, then doubts it, then fills it again. You see a delay and turn it into a story. You see a quick reply and turn it into hope. You see silence and turn it into meaning. But none of those were answers. They were fragments, and fragments don't settle anything. There's a reason a confusing message drains you more than a clear rejection. A clear answer ends the conversation inside your head. A confusing one keeps it alive. Day 3, you're still checking. Week 2, you're still thinking. Friday night, you're still waiting for something that was never promised. And it starts to feel personal, like you're doing something wrong, like you're not enough. Like if you just said one better thing, acted one better way, it would finally make sense. But listen carefully. This is not always about weakness. Sometimes you are just inside a situation that gives your mind no place to rest. No clear answer, no clear direction, no clear end. So it keeps moving, and the more it moves, the more tired you feel. Not because you care too much, but because nothing ever fully stopped. And until something stops, your mind won't either. But understanding this is only the beginning, because the next problem is even quieter. You might still be calling the wrong things attention. That mistake costs more than people realize. A lot of people feel seen for a moment and call it care. They get one text at 11:07 p.m. on a Sunday night, and suddenly their whole chest opens again. They get a quick, "You up?" after 2 silent weeks, and they read weight into it that was never there. Then Monday morning comes, 7:14 a.m., and nothing follows. No plan, no clarity, no change. So, listen carefully. Being remembered is not the same as being valued. Being checked on is not the same as being chosen. And being hard to forget is not the same as being safe to love. Those are different things. A person can notice your absence because you are convenient. A person can miss your availability without missing you. A person can reach out because their Friday night in Dallas fell apart, because their date cancelled, because their apartment feels too quiet, because the familiar option suddenly looks useful again. That is still attention, but it is not the same as respect. You see this all the time. A co-worker in Chicago laughs with you in the break room every Tuesday at 12:20, asks about your weekend, remembers your coffee order, and still leaves you hanging the moment the conversation costs them something real. An ex watches every Instagram story from Los Angeles at 10:56 p.m., likes the photo, sends the fire emoji, and never says one direct sentence about where they stand. A friend checks in every time their life gets heavy, then disappears the second the crisis passes. A manager praises your reliability in the Monday morning meeting, then keeps pushing work onto you because you never say no. All of that is attention. But look at what kind. Some attention comes from affection. Some comes from habit. Some comes from guilt. Some comes from boredom. Some comes from losing easy access to somebody who used to be available on command. That last one fools people the most because it feels flattering at first. It feels like proof. It feels like something has shifted. But many times, nothing deep has shifted at all. The only thing that changed is that the door stopped swinging open for free.
And once that happens, a lot of people start rattling the handle. Not because they suddenly discovered your worth, not because they woke up with new character, not because they are ready to be clear, steady, and honest. Sometimes they just felt the loss of convenience. That is why you have to look at the whole picture, not the small signal. A message is not the whole picture. A late-night check-in is not the whole picture. A "thinking of you" text on Sunday at 11:34 p.m. is not the whole picture. A reaction to your story from Miami is not the whole picture. The whole picture is this. Do they speak clearly? Do they follow through? Do they stay the same on Monday morning that they were on Saturday night? Do they show up only when life gets lonely? Or do they show up when it is inconvenient too? That is where the truth starts to show. Because respect has weight to it. It has steadiness. It has a cost someone is willing to pay. It is not just a spark. It is not just a return. It is not just a familiar hand knocking when the room gets cold. A man who truly values a woman does not keep her in permanent guesswork. A woman who truly values a man does not offer warmth one weekend and confusion the next. A friend who truly cares does not make you carry the whole friendship from Phoenix to Thanksgiving and back. And a person who truly means it does not leave you building meaning out of scraps. That is the difference. Attention can be brief. Respect has continuity. Attention can be emotional. Respect becomes visible in choices. Attention can happen in one moment. Respect survives across time. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not just one text on Sunday night. That distinction matters because once you call every signal care, you start overvaluing people who have not actually done much. You give importance to crumbs. You build hope on tiny gestures. You hand out emotional meaning where there may only be impulse, habit, or loneliness.
And that is where many good people get hurt. Not because they are foolish, not because they are desperate, but because they are sincere. And sincerity often assumes the other person means as much as they do. That assumption is expensive. So do not ask only, did they come back? Ask a harder question. What came back? Was it honesty? Was it effort? Was it consistency? Or was it just a familiar hand reaching for a familiar door? Because there are people who remember you only because you used to be easy to find. And if you are the kind of person who is always available, always warm, always easy to reach, that truth will hit you harder than most. A hard truth sits here. A lot of people hear one strong message, nod their head, and still go home to the same life. They know they should speak up. They know they should stop over-explaining. They know they should stop making themselves smaller just to keep the peace. And still, the next time it happens, they fold. At 16, a girl gets praised for being easy. At 28, she is the one staying late in the office Slack, cleaning up a mess that was never hers. At 34, she is still saying yes with a smile, while something in her chest says no. That is not stupidity. That is training. Some people did not learn love as something they could simply receive. They learned love as something they had to protect. Keep everyone comfortable. Keep everyone calm. Keep everyone from leaving. So they become agreeable, useful, easy to manage. And after enough years, that does not just become something they do. It starts to feel like who they are. That is why change is harder than people think. Because when a person like that finally starts speaking differently, the pain is not only outside them, it is inside them too. They're not just risking someone's disappointment. They are disturbing an old identity. Picture the oldest sibling in a house outside Atlanta. At 12, she keeps dinner peaceful when her parents are tense. At 19, she becomes the one relatives call so mature. By Thanksgiving at 31, she is still the person clearing dishes, smoothing over awkward moments, and laughing when she is actually exhausted. People admire that from the outside, but inside, a dangerous bargain gets built. I will carry the emotional weight, and in return, I will still belong. That bargain follows people everywhere, into dating, into work, into friendships, into church group conversations in Houston where one person keeps saying, "It's fine, really," even when it is not. Into text threads where a boyfriend says, "Don't make this a big deal," and she answers, "No worries," while staring at the screen at 10:48 p.m., feeling sick. So when self-help tells a person like that, "Just choose yourself," the sentence sounds right. But the body hears something else. The body hears risk. The body hears conflict. The body hears, "You may no longer be the good one." That is why so many people do not change after one awakening. They do not lack intelligence. They lack practice surviving the discomfort that comes after a different choice. A man in Denver can understand in one clean moment that his girlfriend keeps him in a gray zone. He sees it clearly on a Wednesday at 8:12 p.m. He says to himself, "I won't keep doing this." Then Friday comes. She texts, "Hey stranger," and suddenly he is warm again, hopeful again, available again.
Why? Because the old self is still there. The self that feels useful when chosen. The self that feels safe when needed. The self that would rather accept mixed signals than sit inside emptiness for one whole weekend. This is where people judge themselves too harshly. They say, "I knew better." Yes, but knowing better and tolerating the cost of doing better are not the same thing. A daughter can know her mother only calls when she wants something. An employee can know his boss piles extra work on him because he never pushes back.
A boyfriend can know he is always the first one fixing every fight. A friend can know she is the emergency contact, but never the first invitation. Knowing is one step, living it is another. Because living it means letting someone be disappointed, letting a room go quiet, letting a text sit unanswered for a while, letting a family member in Phoenix say, "You've changed," without rushing to prove that you are still the gentle one they can lean on. That part feels ugly. It does not feel spiritual. It does not feel noble. It feels awkward, cold sometimes, even guilty. And that is where most people turn back. Not because the old life was healthy, because it was familiar. Read that again in your own way. Familiar is powerful. A woman can say no one day, then spend the next day writing a 3-paragraph explanation at 6:43 a.m. to make sure no one sees her as rude. A man can finally cancel plans that drain him, then call back 2 hours later because he cannot stand the weight of being misunderstood. A person can take one brave step and then immediately soften it, decorate it, apologize for it, and hand most of it back. That does not mean the step was fake. It means the change is real enough to cause friction. And that friction matters. Because real growth is rarely clean in the beginning. It stumbles, it repeats, it shakes. It speaks clearly one day and over-explains the next. So here is the question that cuts deeper than most advice ever does. Are you being kind, or are you paying for acceptance? Sit with that, because those are not the same thing. Kindness can stay standing. Paying for acceptance collapses the second someone frowns. And the people who have spent years being pleasant, helpful, low maintenance, and endlessly understanding usually do not need more shame. They need repetition. They need practice. They need to survive other people's disappointment without racing back into the old role. That is the real work. Not performing strength. Not sounding wise. Not winning one conversation. Staying with the discomfort long enough that your old self stops running the room. And once that begins, another challenge shows up right behind it. Even after you leave the old role, something in you may still want to go back. Leaving is one thing. Staying gone is another. A lot of people make one clean decision on day one. They delete the number. They mute the Instagram account. They tell themselves, "I'm done." And for a few hours, that feels true. Then, day 3 arrives. The apartment lobby in Brooklyn looks the same. The coffee shop in Austin where you used to wait together still smells the same. The playlist called August Rain is still sitting in Spotify. The photo album is still there in your iPhone. That is where people get confused. They think they are trying to leave a person. Many times, they are trying to leave a whole routine. The 8:10 a.m. check of your phone, the 10:43 p.m. habit of looking for one more message, the Sunday drive on I-405 with the same songs playing, the small rush when their name appears, the drop in your stomach when it does not. Those things matter, because the heart is not the only thing involved. Your day got trained too. Your hands got trained. Your eyes got trained.
Even the quiet parts of your evening got trained. That is why week 2 can feel stranger than the breakup itself. By then, the first shock is gone, but the empty spaces are still there. The space after dinner, the walk from the office to the car, the seat on the subway home, the 10 minutes before sleep when your thumb almost opens the same thread again. And this is where many people turn the whole thing into a story about love. Sometimes it is love, sometimes it is grief, sometimes it is loneliness, but sometimes it is also familiarity. There are people who do not go back because the bond was beautiful.
They go back because the old rhythm still fits their body better than the new one does. Read that slowly. The old rhythm still fits. That is why you can know someone was wrong for you and still feel pulled back on a Wednesday night at 11:16. That is why a man in Phoenix can delete the contact, block the account, and still find himself outside the same diner 2 Fridays later. That is why a woman in Charlotte can swear she is done, then open an old text thread at 6:58 a.m. before work without even planning to. It is not always one big dramatic choice. It is 100 small returns. One look, one song, one just checking, one I wonder what they meant by that. One visit to the same coffee shop, one pause outside the same apartment building, and little by little, the road back gets walked again. Listen carefully. A person does not only miss who someone was, they miss what life felt like around that person. The habit of telling someone every detail first. The habit of waiting for one name to light up the screen. The habit of feeling wanted at one exact hour of the night. The habit of organizing your day around the possibility of contact. That is why strong words are not enough. I'm done, I deserve better, I'm moving on. Those words can be true, but words do not change your evening by themselves. A new life needs new placement, new timing, new routes, new objects in reach. If you still sleep with the phone on the same side of the bed, still pass the same cafe in Nashville every Saturday, still keep the same playlist at the top of Spotify, still leave the old photo album one tap away, then your body keeps getting invitations to return before your mind even catches up. So no, leaving is not only about refusing one person. It is also about changing what your day keeps rehearsing. Take the long way home for a while. Move the photos. Rename the playlist or delete it. Sit in a different booth. Text a different friend first. Put something else in the hour where you used to wait. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Because some doors do not reopen with grand speeches. They reopen through small, familiar movements. And the people who truly get free are usually not the ones who make the biggest declaration. They are the ones who stop feeding the small return. They stop checking. They stop circling. They stop placing themselves 1 inch away from the old life and calling that distance. That is when the pull begins to loosen. Not all at once, but for real. And even then, one hard question still remains. When you go quiet, are you getting better? Or are you only making the old room quieter? There is a kind of silence that clears your life. And there is a kind of silence that only keeps a painful story alive a little longer. From the outside, they can look exactly the same. No reply for 48 hours, no callback, no long paragraph, no late-night explanation. But inside, they are not the same at all. A woman in Seattle can put her phone down on Monday at 9:18 p.m., go to sleep, wake up lighter, and know she did the right thing by not answering. A man in Tampa can stay quiet for 10 days after a breakup,
still check his lock screen every 12 minutes, still open the old iMessage thread at 6:41 a.m. and call that peace. Those are two different realities. One kind of silence comes after clarity. The other comes from fear. The first one says, "I have seen enough." The second one says, "I still cannot bear to hear it said out loud." That difference matters, because a person can stop talking and still be completely trapped. They can look calm at work on Wednesday morning in Dallas, answer emails, smile in meetings, and still be arguing with someone in their head every time they walk to the parking garage. They can leave a dating app message unopened for 72 hours and still build 5 imaginary conversations in the shower.
They can avoid one hard discussion and call that strength, when really they are only buying more time before the truth lands. Listen carefully. Not every quiet person is healed. Not every delayed response is wisdom. Not every retreat is self-respect. Sometimes, silence is clean. A co-parent in Phoenix refuses to answer a hostile message at 11:26 p.m. because nothing good will come from fighting, tired, and angry. That is restraint. An employee in Chicago does not defend himself in the office Slack at 8:03 a.m. because the accusation is petty and the facts will speak by noon. That is discipline. A woman in Atlanta ends a call when the same disrespect appears for the 4th time in 1 month. That is clarity. But silence changes shape when it comes from avoidance. A man reads, "We need to talk about where this is going," on Thursday at 10:14 p.m. and disappears, not because he is centered, but because he cannot handle giving a real answer. A girlfriend says, "I'm just keeping my peace," while secretly refreshing Instagram to see if he watched her story from 1:07 a.m. An ex goes quiet after hearing something true, not because they have accepted it, but because they hope distance will do the work honesty refused to do. That is not the same thing. And here is the hardest part. The body often prefers the second kind, because it feels safer in the moment, safer to pause, safer to vanish, safer to leave a sentence unfinished than to risk the pain of a clear ending. So a person tells themselves a flattering story. "I'm above the drama. I don't need to explain. I'm staying calm." Maybe, maybe not. There is one question that exposes the difference very fast. After your silence, is your life getting quieter, or is only your mouth quieter? Read that again. Because if the phone is face down, but your mind is racing, that is not peace. If you did not reply for 10 days but still checked the dating app every night at 10:52, that is not release. If you ended the conversation but keep rehearsing it during your commute on I-95, that is not closure. If you stopped texting but still hope the other person will force the moment you are too afraid to create, that is not strength. That is delay. And delay has a cost. It keeps the door cracked. It keeps the fantasy breathing. It keeps you close enough to the old pain that you never quite bleed out, but never quite heal either. This is why some people stay in emotional limbo for months. Nothing dramatic is happening. No big fight, no final breakup speech, no public collapse. Just a long trail of unsaid things. A text left unread. A plan never confirmed. A sentence like, "I just need space right now." A silence that lasts from Friday night to the following Wednesday and teaches you nothing except how to wait better. That kind of quiet will wear a person down. So do not admire silence too quickly. Test it. When you go quiet, are you becoming more honest or more hidden?
When you step back, are you protecting your peace or protecting yourself from hearing something final? When you say nothing, are you actually finished? Or are you secretly hoping the other person will come do the hard part for you? That is the line. Maturity is not speaking less no matter what. Maturity is knowing when words would only feed chaos, and knowing when one clear sentence would stop a month of confusion. Sometimes the strongest move is to leave the message unanswered. Sometimes the strongest move is to say, "This does not work for me anymore." At 7:32 p.m., close the phone and let reality be real. That is harder. That is cleaner. That is adult. And once you see that, another question rises right behind it. If keeping busy can also hide pain, then what kind of growth is actually real? A lot of people look busier and call that growth. They start waking up at 5:30 a.m. They buy new clothes. They post gym selfies from Equinox in Los Angeles.
They fill every hour on Google Calendar. They tell themselves, "I'm moving forward." Maybe, maybe not. Because movement is not always healing, and effort is not always progress. Sometimes a person is building a better life. Sometimes they're just staying too occupied to feel what still owns them. That difference matters. A man can lift 4 days a week, cut his screen time from 7 hours to 3, and still let one text ruin his whole Thursday. A woman can save $2,400 in 3 months, meal prep every Sunday in Dallas, hit 10,000 steps a day, and still lose sleep the second one familiar name appears at 11:18 p.m. From the outside, both people look stronger. Inside, the same old switch may still be sitting in someone else's hand. So ask a harder question. Not, do I look better? Not, am I doing more? Not even, am I staying busy? Ask this instead. Am I building something that stays with me? Or am I only stacking tasks high enough to block the view? Because real change leaves something behind. A new skill, a steadier mind, a stronger schedule, better sleep, more money left at the end of the month, a body that can carry stress without collapsing, a day that no longer falls apart because one person went quiet. That is different, and you can feel it. Here is the first sign. Does what you are doing create ability? Reading one book in a week can matter if it sharpens the way you think. Taking a course on Coursera can matter if it makes you more valuable at work 6 months from now. Learning how to cook 5 solid meals at home can matter if it saves you $180 a week in Chicago and makes your evenings less chaotic. Training at the gym 3 times a week can matter if it gives you energy, discipline, and a body that feels reliable again. Those things build something. They stay. But there is another kind of busy that looks impressive and leaves almost nothing behind. Cleaning the apartment 3 times in one day because silence feels unbearable. Taking extra shifts not because you need the money, but because you cannot stand your own mind after 8 p.m. Scrolling self-help clips for 2 hours on YouTube and calling it self-work. Rearranging your life every weekend while the same emotional wound stays untouched. That is not always growth. Sometimes it is pain with better lighting. Listen carefully. Many people call all busyness healing. That is where they get trapped. Here is the second sign. When the activity ends, are you steadier or only more tired? That question exposes a lot. If your workout leaves you clearer, more grounded, and less reactive, it is helping.
If your workday in Manhattan ends with better focus, better savings, and a cleaner mind, it is helping. If journaling for 20 minutes before bed helps you sleep 7 hours instead of 4.5, it is helping. But if the second the room goes quiet, you feel the same panic, the same urge to check the phone, the same need to know who saw what and when, then the activity may only be delaying the crash. Use numbers if you have to. Track your sleep in Apple Health. Look at your weekly screen time report on iPhone. Check your bank app on the first of the month. Count how many times you reached for the phone during one dinner alone in Denver. See whether your resting state is changing, not just your image. Because growth that is real will show up in ordinary life. You sleep more. You spend less impulsively. You recover faster. You need less reassurance. Your mornings stop beginning with emotional damage control. Now here is the third sign. Does this new life make you less dependent on somebody else's signal? That is the one many people avoid. A new haircut does not answer that. A new apartment does not answer that. Even a fuller schedule does not answer that. Dependency shows up in small places. Can you enjoy a Saturday in Phoenix without checking whether they watched your story?
Can you finish a work presentation in Boston without hoping a certain text lands first? Can you sit through a quiet night, cook dinner, fold laundry, go to bed, and still feel like your life is moving? That is when change becomes real. Not when you seem upgraded. When your day stops asking one person for permission to feel normal. Psychologist Lori Gottlieb once wrote that we do not change when we get what we want, but when we are able to tell the truth about what is not working. That line matters here, because the truth may be this: you were not growing. You were distracting yourself with style, effort, and motion. Real growth is calmer than that. It is not loud. It is not always photogenic. Sometimes it looks like 8 hours of sleep, a lower screen time number, one difficult class completed, $600 left untouched in savings, and a Tuesday night that no longer depends on one person answering. That is progress. And even that is not enough if you still confuse being noticed with being loved. Now listen carefully. A lot of pain would end earlier if people stopped asking the wrong question. Not, do I still care? Not, do I miss them? Not even, did they come back? Ask this instead. What exactly is this signal? Because not every return means the same thing. A text at 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday is one thing. A clear call on Monday morning is another. A, hey, how have you been, 2 days before Thanksgiving, is not the same as someone saying, I was wrong and I want to talk in person. Those are not equal. Do not treat them as equal. Start with the first question. Is this attention or is this commitment? Attention is easy. Attention can be a heart on your Instagram story from an ex in Miami at 12:07 a.m. Attention can be a "you up" text. Attention can be somebody watching every post after being silent for 2 weeks. Commitment costs more.
Commitment sounds like this. I'll be there at 6. Commitment sounds like this. I know I disappeared and I want to explain it clearly. Commitment makes time. Commitment follows through. Commitment survives daylight. That matters, because many people feel their heart jump the moment attention appears. They read presence into a signal that only proves curiosity. They read care into access. They read meaning into movement. Do not do that. Someone can notice you and still not be ready for you. Someone can miss your availability and still not value your life. Someone can reach out from Seattle on a lonely Sunday night and still have nothing solid to offer by Monday morning. That is the first cut. Attention asks, "Are you still there?" Commitment says, "Here is what I'm willing to do." There is a difference. Now the second question. Is this clear, or is this just cleaner confusion? Some people never give you a full answer. They only get better at sounding soft while staying vague. The old chaos becomes polished. The uncertainty puts on better clothes. Look at the language. Miss you is not clear. We should catch up sometime is not clear. I've been thinking about you a lot lately is not clear. A last-minute invite in Chicago with no plan, no time, and no next step is not clear. Clear sounds different. Clear names the issue. Clear names the intention. Clear names the next move. It does not leave you rereading iMessage at 1:10 a.m. trying to turn a maybe into a promise. That is where many people lose themselves. They are not responding to certainty. They are responding to hope dressed up as almost. And almost has drained more people than no ever did. Hold on to that. The third question is harder. Are they moving closer because they feel responsible, or because something else in their life went empty? This is where timing tells on people. Someone loses another option in Austin, then suddenly they remember your value.
Someone has a quiet weekend in Denver, then your name appears. Someone goes through a breakup in February, gets lonely on Valentine's weekend, and sends a message that sounds deep, but arrives only when their own life gets cold. See it clearly. Need is not the same as readiness. Loneliness is not the same as love. An empty calendar is not the same as a changed heart. A father who wants to co-parent better will show it in actions, not just apologies. A former partner who wants to rebuild trust will accept hard conversations, not just send warm words. A coworker who respects you will not only slack you when the project is on fire, they will treat you differently before the next emergency arrives. This is why timing matters. This is why consistency matters. This is why one strong message means very little without a steady week, a steady month, a steady direction. And here is the fourth question. After this signal, is your life getting calmer or more tangled? Pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your sleep. Pay attention to what happens after the contact. Do you eat dinner in peace, or do you stare at your phone through the whole meal? Do you sleep 7 hours, or do you wake up at 3:18 a.m. and check whether they watched your story? Do you move through your Tuesday with steadiness, or does one maybe blow apart the rest of your week? That answer is not small, because some signals do not reopen love. They reopen confusion. They reopen waiting. They reopen the version of you that forgets how to stay centered once somebody familiar knocks on the door. Be honest here. If the signal makes you clearer, calmer, more grounded, maybe something real is happening. If it makes you restless, distracted, and easy to pull around again, then the signal may be about contact, not care. And that is the shift. You stop asking whether the feeling is still there. You stop asking whether they finally noticed. You start asking what kind of thing is actually standing in front of you. Attention or commitment? Clear or vague? Responsibility or emptiness? Peace or confusion? Answer those four well, and you stop handing your life over to every small return. And when you see it that way, the final question changes too. It is no longer, how do I make this hurt less? It becomes, what kind of person am I becoming when life sends me these signals again?
And in the end, this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think the goal is to become harder to reach, harder to read, harder to replace, harder to forget. That is not the real finish line. The real finish line is quieter than that. It is more ordinary than that. It is whether your life can hold its shape on a normal Tuesday at 2:14 p.m. when no message comes in. It is whether your Friday night still belongs to you when an old name appears and then disappears again. It is whether one unread text can still hijack your whole body. That matters more than pride. That matters more than appearances. That matters more than looking strong for 5 minutes online. Because a lot of people do improve on the surface. They post less, they answer slower, they look calmer. But their screen time still jumps the moment one familiar notification lights up. Their sleep still breaks at 3:11 a.m. Their whole mood still bends around a signal that takes 3 seconds to arrive and 3 days to recover from. That is not freedom. That is dependency wearing better clothes. Listen carefully. A grown life is not measured by whether somebody in Dallas finally reaches back out. It is not measured by whether an ex in Phoenix watches your story again on Sunday night. It is not measured by whether somebody who went quiet now sends, "Hey stranger," on Monday morning. It is measured by smaller things. Can you eat dinner without checking your phone 6 times? Can you finish a work block without opening Instagram to see if they viewed it?
Can you keep your plans on Saturday instead of canceling because one vague message reopened the week? Can you sleep a full 7 hours without your mind holding a conversation that never happened? That is where the truth lives. Because the hardest part is not always letting go of a person. Sometimes it is letting go of the version of yourself that kept rearranging everything to make one connection work. The too understanding version. The always available version. The version that could turn mixed signals into hope and call that loyalty. You have to outgrow that version too. And this is why the deeper question was never, will they come back different? The deeper question is, can I live differently even if nothing changes on their side? Can your morning still be steady? Can your budget still stay intact? Can your body still feel rested? Can your plans still remain yours? If the answer is yes, something real is changing. If the answer is no, then the story is still running your schedule, even if the person is no longer in the room. So stop using dramatic moments as the test. Do not wait for a huge speech. Do not wait for the perfect apology. Do not wait for a beautiful ending. Look at the ordinary evidence. Your missed sleep, your canceled plans, your unread messages that still sit in your chest all day, your screen time report on Wednesday. The way one small contact can still pull your attention off your own life by noon. That is where you see whether you are healing or just enduring. And here is the hard truth. Some relationships do not need a perfect ending. They do not need one last talk. They do not need a final scene where everybody suddenly understands each other. They only need to lose permission. Permission to set the temperature of your day. Permission to decide whether your body rests. Permission to decide whether your thoughts stay with your own life or drift back into old confusion. That is maturity. Not becoming cold. Not becoming unreachable. Not becoming impressive from a distance. Becoming easier to live with when you are alone. So, before this week ends, ask yourself one honest question. What in your life is still being directed by an old signal that should no longer have that kind of authority over you?